If you're new to my channel and are looking to learn about Scratchboard, then this is the video for you. The first thing I do is I find what reference photo I want to use. Now make sure you do have permission to use this photo to make a piece of work. Otherwise you might have copyright issues or not be able to display in certain galleries without written permission from the photographer. So I first find my photo and I edit it in Photoshop. I usually desaturate and turn it into black and white, and I crop it to the correct size that I want to use for my Scratchboard, which in this case is an 8x8. Then I'm going to print it off and cut the sides and bottom off, and I'm going to overlay it on top of my Scratchboard. And I'm just going to tape it on with some painter's tape. For this next step, you're going to need some transfer paper, or in my case, I just colored with a pencil all over an entire sheet of paper and overlaid it underneath my reference image so that when I trace out the major outlines, like where the nose is and all the bright white spots, that I will have a slight lead pencil mark on my Scratchboard. Saral does make some great transfer paper. The white is just a little too bright for me and it really throws me off when I'm working, so I prefer it to do it this way and just have some light lead pencil lines that I can use to reference. Now when I start a portrait, especially of an animal, the first thing I always start with is the eye. I do use various different microblading tattoo needles, an X-acto knife, fiberglass brushes, amongst single needle tools that I use to do different things. Now for an eye with the texture, I would use a microblading tattoo needle, usually a U17, maybe even a U19. It gives you really fine lines that you can do nice cross hatching with. And then for the fur, if you ever see me using the blue tool or the green, those are my R5 and R3 needles. Another microblading tattoo needle, and they are great for fur. One of the biggest tips I can give to a new Scratchboard artist is to always build up very lightly, and you do not want to push very hard when scratching because you will gouge out the clay layer and make it look really messy. So be very gentle, and you do not need to push hard when you are scratching off the inked surface. So underneath is the layer of clay, and like I said, if you scratch too hard, you're going to kind of indent that and there will be no way to repair. Ampersand does make repair inks. They will cover up if you make a mistake, but you'll always still see those lines and indents that you made when scratching. So I always do really light layers and gradually build it up. Usually when I'm doing a portrait, I am doing what I would call a base layer. And then I'm going to come back later with my X-acto blade and fill in any detail hairs that I want to add. I will also add in any areas or work more on areas that need more white. So you'll see me flip my paper down as I work, and that really helps me gauge if I need to add more white in that area and make sure that I'm on track with staying close to the image. In addition to having that and flipping it down, I do have the image pulled up on my computer screen in front of me, and I have it zoomed in on what area of the portrait I am working on. It's also important with hair and stuff, you want to draw that hair in the actual direction that that hair is growing. I like doing fur with the 3 and 5 microblading tattoo needles because they really give you that realistic fur texture, and they do really good for the base layer before I can add in individual hairs with my X-acto knife tool. In general, the microblading tattoo needle really gives you a softer line, while an X-acto blade is going to give you really more strong lines. So I use the X-acto for whiskers and the detail hairs that I'm going to add in later, while I use the other ones for the softer fur textures that I look for. Now I'm using a black India Pitt pen to add in black whiskers and detail hairs. And now I'm going to go back in with my X-acto blade to go back over areas, add in white where they need to be a little bit brighter, and add in all those fine detail hairs on top of the base layer that I've put down. And again, you really still want to be really soft-handed when using any of your needle tools. All right, so let's get close so you can see all those details. and the black whiskers that I added, and all the tiny little detail hairs. Even in the black areas of the portrait, there is still really faint scratching, so you still get that fur texture even in the areas that are super dark. Again, a U17 to a U21 microblading tattoo needle for any soft things like scales or eyes or a nose really gives you a faint finish. So for varnishing, which is an important part to preserve your work, I use Krylon UV Archival Varnish in Satin. They have gloss, semi-gloss, but Satin is the one that I prefer. And this is the most nerve-wracking process of doing a scratchboard, since you've spent hours making this picture, and it is so finicky and dependent upon the weather. And in Virginia Beach, let me tell you, it gets super humid. So luckily right now we've been having really perfect 60 to 70 degree days and low humidity, so it's perfect time to varnish this guy. Now here are some detail shots so you can see up close the finished portrait. I hope you found this commentary video helpful to you, and be sure to subscribe below.